Recording in progress.
Yes, sir. It's 6. Good evening. It is now 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the Administration and Finance Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you take the roll, please?
Branham. McBride.
Present.
Livingston.
Present.
Weaver.
Here.
Mackey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes from October 24, 2023. Do you have any
Move to
changes,
approve.
deletions? The motion for approval? Anyone like to second? Thank you. We have a motion and second. Madam Clerk, would you?
McBride.
I'm present. Oh, yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Weaver.
Here. Oh, no,
Mackey.
we're doing the vote. Sorry. Yes. What is in the water tonight? That's what.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right. It is, I think, for all my colleagues, this time change along with this late meeting has gotten all of us thrown off. Approval of the agenda. ACA Thomas, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented?
No, ma'am, no changes.
All right.
Madam Chair, I move for approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
McBride.
Yes.
Livingston. Weaver.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. And I will say, I'm sorry I didn't say this earlier. Councilman Jason Branham did notify me ahead of time that he would not be in attendance in person this evening, and he will try to attend virtually if possible. First item up is item 4A, Department of Public Works, Jim Hamilton, L.B. Owens Airport, Richland County Code of Ordinance, Chapter 3. A.C. Thomas, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, if it pleases the Chair, I'd like to recognize the General Manager for the airport, Mr. Savalas, to address any questions that you all may have and to go over this item.
Yes, Mr. Savalas, welcome back. You're new, but it seems that you are pretty familiar with coming to.
Yes, ma'am. I'm
Meetings
comfortable with
now.
the procedures.
That is awesome. You're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you. I bring before you the approved or revised item for discussion, which is to do with the ordinance of Chapter 3 for the airport, dealing with the airport commission staff. And there were some 3 questions, inquiries that the council had, the committee had, and they've been included in your package. Hopefully, the answers were resolved and give better insight to the questions.
Thank you. I'll open up to the committee for any questions.
Madam Chair,
You're recognized, Ms. McBride.
give us a brief overview of the results from those questions.
Yes, ma'am, by all means. The three inquiries were as follows. First one, they were asking, the council asked for explain the rationale for reducing the airport commission. Succinctly to say, the reduction was necessary because it made it for better running of the commission. We've been frequently challenged with meeting quorum and being able to conduct the business because of the lack of quorum. And also the fact that most state airports and the State Aeronautics Commission in particular also has the normal population of the commission as being a 7-member board. So that was the one. The second question is, how would we reduce the number of commissioner members from 9 to 7? The idea is to, as through normal attrition, as members come off they end their terms, those positions will not be renewed. They would just drop off, and then that would allow the reduction to 7 members, keeping. And then the third inquiry was about the representation of the county, of the communities, of which communities, and that was built into the ordinance, the original ordinance, and we took a graphic representation using GIS that shows all the areas, all the neighborhoods that are incorporated and unincorporated areas of the airport. And so that's how it was defined. That is how we define the community representation.
Welcome, Ms. McBride. I'll entertain a motion.
Approve, Madam Chair.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk?
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston. Weaver,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Also, forgive me, earlier, I did not recognize Councilwoman Cheryl English that is joining us for our committee meeting. Thank you for being here. Next is item 4B, Community Planning and Development Conservation Division Columbia Rowing Club Operating Agreement. ACA Thomas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this is a proposed operating agreement between the Columbia Rowing Club that's presented by the Conservation Division. And if I may, I'd like to recognize ACA Jensen to speak to this item.
Recognize, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great to be with you all. If you have details regarding this, I will defer to Manager Epps. But in general, the Columbia Rowing Club has had a dock or has been using this to launch their boats for about 20 years now. And the reason they like this particular location is because the water is very flat and very still, relatively speaking. It is an excellent location to put in to go sculling or to rowing. And so what you have before you is exactly or essentially the same agreement that has been renewed periodically over the years with the rowing club. No significant changes of any kind. There were discussions about doing some other things at the site, but those particular discussions didn't go anywhere due to other issues. So the recommendation is simply to renew the agreement with the rowing club.
Thank you, ACA Thomas. Any comments or questions from the committee? Councilman Weaver, you recognized?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question is, is there a cost to the county? I guess I'm missing this in here, or is there a cost to the county?
If I may, Madam. Yes. Thank you. There is no cost. It never has been. It's essentially the rowing club insures the section of property that they use. They pay for all the improvements and maintenance of everything that they use there, but we have not assessed them a fee for that.
Just to follow up to that question, so on page 36, when it talks about the annual maintenance cost estimates, that figure amount, it appears that it is coming out of a current budget that we have. So can you speak to that budget in relation to Councilman Weaver's question?
If I may defer to Manager Epps on that item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Most of those costs,
Correct.
Quentin Epps,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
most of those costs are relative to the whole property because the rowing club only uses about an acre and a half. And the property is about 30 acres, and it's used for other activities like mostly fishing. People go down there and, hang out with nature, if that's a good way to say that. And so sometimes we have to fix the roads, we have to pick up trash, things like that. Every now and then we have repaired the roof on the boat shed, which was a one-time cost of about $2,500. So those are very minimal costs that we have associated with that facility, most of which is not due to the rowing club.
So we would pay this same amount of maintenance regardless if the rowing club was there or not, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk?
Yes. Livingston. Weaver.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item is 4C, the Grants and Community Outreach Fiscal Year 23-24 CDBG Public Service Projects and Public Facilities Infrastructure Projects. ACA Thomas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project is actually going to be outlining the 23-24 CDGB Public Service Projects and Public Facilities Infrastructure recommendations from the department, and presenting this tonight, if I may, is going to be the manager of the department, Ms. Callison Richardson.
Good evening. Thank you, ACA Thomas and Chairwoman Mackey. So Callison Richardson, Community Development Division Manager. Have been in the role a little over a year, and this is my first time getting a chance to address the committee, so excited to be here. So we actually have two agenda items tonight, and they're connected in that it's all regarding CDBG funding. So one of the things that you would have seen in your packet is, we receive CDBG funding on an annual basis, these entitlement funds. And there's something called a timeliness test with our CDBG funding. So kind of as a division, some things that we've been up against are, one, during COVID-19, a lot of our programs just couldn't run. We couldn't go in people's houses. We couldn't do minor home repair. And then in addition to that, there was a high level of staff turnover in community development. Thankfully, can say that we have a really strong team now, and we have a lot of stability. And so we're very excited about kind of the direction we're heading. So both of the items that are before you are essentially talking about this timeliness test and what we need to do with our new money that we've just received starting October 1, and what we need to do with some of this built up money that we have kind of in reserves. And so in terms of the timeliness test, we have until the end of July 2024 to expend $2.9 million in CDBG funds. And so some of that is going to come from this new award, that these are the new projects before you for 23-24, and some of that is dealing with our plan. I guess if you can think about in terms of investments, we would like a diverse portfolio of how we plan to get those funds out there. So that is also what the substantial amendment that we have before you is about.
Thank you. Questions? Councilman Weaver?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the 2.9 million in funds, where is that? Is that money from the county? Is that federal?
Good question. So this is all from HUD. So our entire division, our staff, and all of the projects that we run are fully funded by HUD. And we receive two large entitlements. CDBG is the largest one. The other one is Home Investment Partnership. So that's all about affordable housing. So everything you see here are funds that are essentially allocated to us from the feds. We expend it from our budget, and then we draw it down from the feds as a direct reimbursement. So it doesn't cost the county anything.
So just for instance, under affordable housing, like, is it helping people with payments? Is it providing housing, or?
So no helping people with payments, but we have a couple of different things we help with affordable housing. So with CDBG funding, we use some of our money to do minor home repair for income qualified senior citizens that are in unincorporated Richland County. So it's really important to know about our entitlement funds is because the city receives their own allocation. Our funds are only for unincorporated areas of the county. So every year we run a program called Operation One Touch, and that is minor home repair. We increased the amount this year to $20,000 a home just because of the cost of construction and things. And so we have an application process, and we have a goal to try to do about 20 houses a year all across the county for eligible families. The other item that I guess we'll get to second, but the other kind of affordable housing project we have for CDBG is the idea of reallocating some of those built-up funds to doing acquisition and rehab to develop more affordable rental units that would be monitored by some of our community partners. So that's on the CDBG side. On the home side, we have a lot more capacity to do actual developments. We can do new construction, and anything that takes our HUD money, we actually do an affordability period on the deed. So we can sort of maintain control. So it could be a home ownership opportunity for someone, and we could guarantee that that house doesn't float with the market rates, and we can hold it low for families to have that opportunity. So we've got some flexibility in what we can offer.
Next is Ms. McBride and then Mr. Livingston. You good? All right, Mr. Livingston?
Now, this is based on original scope and plan that you all developed at the beginning of the year and submit first.
Exactly.
And so forth, correct?
You know the drill. So there's the annual action plan that we have to develop every year. And so that kind of determines the budget. So that was where you guys said, $800,000 of this money is going to infrastructure and facilities. And then with public service, which is the other set of projects before you, that number is actually determined by HUD. We're only allowed to spend 15% of our award every year towards funding those programs for low-income families. And so, yes, Councilman Livingston, you're right. We put the plan before you in the summer. You approved the budget. This is us essentially saying, hey, we ran a really robust process to figure out what those projects were going to be, and we're putting them before you to say, hey, this is where the selection process has landed.
Councilman McBride?
You said 15%.
So 15% of our annual CDBG award can go to public services. So what you'll see in your packet, the public service awards as they've been determined through our selection process, I believe that's on page 64. If you want to look in your packet on page 64, and if I'll take a moment of privilege here, I do want to point someone out really important in the audience here. My colleague, Sean Taylor. This is our community development coordinator, and he is the CDBG guy. So he started here in July and has just done a great job of running this full process to get us to the point of having these projects before you. So if you look here on page 64, you see the total amount. Nope, I'm sorry, I'm a page ahead. Pardon me, 62. Thank you. You'll see the total amount that we have, $258,509. That's the 15% cap that we have on our annual CDBG award for public services. And it is just, we wish it was so much more. Just to give you an idea, we had $1.2 million worth of requests for just that $258,000. So it's a very competitive group of projects. Yes, ma'am.
Would that be part of the public service also?
No, so page 64 is the other kind of bucket, which is considered, they call it public infrastructure and public facilities. So it's something that when you approved the action plan, you said we want to max out public service. That's $258,000. That's going to programmatic support. So if you think about staff members at nonprofits, feeding people, counseling services. On this other side, which is the larger bucket of money, if you see on page 64, we have $1.6 million, and that's because it's actually 2 years worth of this funding. As I said, a lot of the things got shut down. So this is actually allocating our program year 22 and program year 23 funds. And the shuffling out, you can see we have one county department. We worked really hard we can fund our own projects. So we worked really closely with our county departments to try to identify things that we could use. Unfortunately, there were just some that just kind of towards the end, they said, we just don't have the capacity for it. So we have a really good public utilities project that's going to do sewer repair to a low-income neighborhood.
Can they see me now?
No, I turned your video off.
Okay, I could have sworn I had that off. Yeah, but
Oh my God.
It's okay. And so we have one utilities project there, and then the other ones, as you can see, are all our nonprofit organizations. So one thing that we really pushed with our nonprofits this year was, that public service bucket is really small. So if you have a facility improvement that you need, let's see the project. So we got kind of a great mix of facility improvements that we can do, and they have to be in the unincorporated areas of the county, or they can be serving the homeless population. And the reason why HUD gives us that kind of caveat for funding a facility in the city limits is because those are the county's homeless services providers. So we can invest CDBG funds at Oliver Gospel or at Transitions.
I want to thank you because I always compliment you on your grant process. And you do an excellent job of writing the grant and even providing follow-up information on it in terms of the process. The funds that I find that, and we just talked about this in the Community Impact Grant, we continue to fund some of the same organizations over and over. And that there are numerous organizations that are within Richland County and in unincorporated Richland County, and that are in underserved communities that are run by the members of those communities that are not receiving funding. So there are great inequities in the way that Richland County ensures that there is equity in terms of services. So my concern is, my question is, how are these projects selected? You do an excellent job, so I want to give you credit in terms of getting data. I find that
yes,
more
in the
so than
reports.
anywhere else in this county, in this administration, you have data-driven projects. And you have information from the community, and you don't do just a survey, you really do several different surveys. So I want to give you credit for that part. Now, in terms of the selection of projects, how is that done to ensure that we are serving all of the districts?
Absolutely. I mean, I hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
So I'll walk you through what we put together and tell you a little bit about why I think in terms of CDBG, sort of the level of reporting and some of those requirements that HUD has makes it very difficult for like a startup or a small nonprofit to be able to manage these funds well.
Excuse me. I just want to know how
Yes,
these
so I'm
were
going to walk,
selected.
yeah.
Okay, so I don't need a lot of.
No, that's fine. So Sean, like I said, Sean Taylor, our CDBG guy, so this was kind of this is the culmination of 4 months of work. So what we did, we did the largest NOFA, so that's the Notice of Funding Availability process that I have come across in all of kind of the minutes from our stuff. So we put out a public notice that went out on social media. We built our own webpage through Richland County that had all the information about who's eligible, how to apply, what are the guidelines, what would reporting be like. We had the largest number of people attend 2 different education workshops on it to try to help organizations and churches, because actually religious organizations are eligible for this funding. We invited the school districts to apply. We had churches, we asked them to come. A couple of things that just to kind of know as it went through. So we did a 2-step application process because we felt like that gave applicants a chance to kind of understand how to build a good project for CDBG. But one of the things that probably made it difficult for some small organizations is that we had a minimum request of $50,000. And the reason why we do that is because the level of reporting and beneficiary documentation, so every one of these nonprofits, they have to actually collect data on every individual that gets served. And not just, the day they were served, but where do they live, what race are they, what kind of household income do they have, so that that reporting can be very cumbersome for some organizations. There's also very strict requirements about record keeping and financial management. So we walk all of those, inquiries through that to help them understand, hey, this is what it would be required if you got this funding. So like I said, we had 1.2 million in terms of just that initial application. Our staff did that first round of making sure that all the projects were, one, eligible, meaning they serve the right area and they fit with your action plan that you approved. And then once we invited everyone back who met the minimum criteria, and then we had 2 separate scoring committees that were, yes. No, that's great. These are questions that. So what we looked at, because there had not been a committee in place the last few years, I looked at some of our sister communities to see what best practices were being used and modeled kind of the structure of what that committee would look like based on theirs. So for the Public Service Committee, we had a committee of 5 individuals that represented the Director of Department of Social Services for Richland County, our county director. We had a member from the Neighborhood Improvement Program in CPND, so someone from Richland County staff. And then the other 3 were comprised of citizens from 3 different districts who had a background either in accounting at the school district, scoring for Department of Education, or were involved kind of, I'll say this, completely independent, no connection to the organizations or politics, but definitely representing the areas that we knew we would be serving, were those folks. So, okay, so we've worked really hard on that one. On the other committee for the infrastructure and the facilities projects, because they're so technical and we're talking about construction-based projects, we had another person from Neighborhood Improvement Program, CPND, our disaster relief manager scored that, and then our grants director scored that.
And were the reviews blind reviews?
No, they weren't blind reviews. The way the applications are, it would be very difficult to remove that. No, just because of the nature of the way that they have to show what area they're serving, and but we did have everybody sign a confidentiality and a conflict of interest statement. So we tried to do everything we could to make sure there was no connection to the folks that were applying.
I'm glad to share this. I wish you could share it with the whole council, because that is the way the grant process should work.
Okay.
The way you're working your grant process.
Well, thank
That's
you.
the way it should. But I'm not sure about the selection of projects to ensure that there is some equity in it. And I think what would be good, because I know we were behind due to COVID and other things, Madam Chair, if we, and maybe we'll do this at the full council committee, but if that we could, because you get a lot of funds coming in, and this is one area that the council is not really fully involved and aware of all the funding, so your presentation has been very good, that you could provide us with updates in terms of, I would like to know who's receiving, especially when we come to the housing and all, who's receiving these resources. And I know the federal government requires you to keep that data anyway. So if you could share, quarterly reports with us or something, so that we can see how well that you are moving along with it, and that would be really great. And the other part is that the affordable housing, I don't know whether you got to that issue, Madam Chair.
No, ma'am, we're not there yet.
Okay.
So, Ms. McBride, just to address a few things you said, thank you for the suggestion. I think it'd be good for staff to consider. I know previously we've held a work session related just to CDBG, and so I would ask staff to consider that as well. And then just taking note of Ms. McBride's request, because I know we're not supposed to be directing staff to do anything. So please, thank you. Which one of you all, you still had something? One of you had your hands up. You good? Okay. So we did not have a motion.
For approval of item C that was just discussed.
All right. Is motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second for item 4C. Any discussion?
With C and D?
No, sir.
Oh, just D.
Just C.
Oh, just C, I'm sorry.
Just C.
Okay.
We have not got to D, so just C. Clerk?
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston, Weaver,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Also, just want to recognize Councilwoman Gretchen Barron, who is attending online. Thank you for joining us this evening. Next is item 4D, Grants and Community Outreach, CDBG Substantial Amendments to Consolidation Plan and Annual Action Plans for Affordable Rental Housing Develop. You
Okay.
recognize.
So same issue, timeliness test. Got to get the money out the door. So when we look back at, I think Councilman Livingston made the point, you guys approve a plan every year to where these funds are supposed to be allocated. So over the last several years, one of the traditional programs that the council has put money into is that minor home repair program, Operation One Touch. Well, when that program was shut down during COVID, and then there was that staff turnover, every year the $250,000 is just kind of building up to the point now that we have over $1 million just for Operation One Touch, which is great, and there's need, but the capacity it takes to get, we have 5 houses that we're doing contracts for right now to start, we're open back up. But I think what I'm trying to say is that in order for us to expend $1 million through Operation One Touch, it will take about 3 or 4 years. It just because of how much it takes to do the procurement process, the bidding process for the repair work, the application process, and we were working really hard to make it more efficient. But we have 2 people on our team that run that program, and 20 houses is about the most they can put out in a year. And at $20,000 a piece with 20 houses, we just cannot spend $1 million by July. It's just not possible. So what we've looked at instead is another critical community need, which is affordable rental housing. And so in a way that we feel like we can expend, we're asking to take $600,000. Part of it would come from Operation One Touch. Part of it is from some economic development program. Again, similar situation. A division manager, a couple back allocated funds for a small business grant program, but we haven't had the staff to be able to develop the policies and procedures and to build it out to be able to get those funds out. So what we're asking is to amend 2 action plans, the 2020 and the 2021, which then makes you also have to amend the consolidated plan that goes with them, because that's kind of all connected, to say we're going to take $600,000 and allocate it to acquisition and rehab for affordable rentals. And so what we think we will actually be able to create 6 rental units that would be set for 20 years to be at the home rate. So they would have to be affordable for low to moderate income families. And so that way we can get that money, $600,000 spent out the door and units up before July. And so again, it's kind of part of that plan to get the timeliness done.
We have a motion. Is there a second? I'll second for discussion. Councilman Weaver, you recognize?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So on the 600,000, when you say acquire new units, are you talking about construction or buying units?
Great question. With CDBG, we're not allowed to do any new construction. So CDBG, when you do housing, it has to be rehab. So what we would do is, if we have the approval, we would take that 600,000 and kind of develop a tight toolkit to work with the folks that are in that space. So when you think about folks that are doing affordable rental, you're talking about SE Uplift, Homeless No More, Reconciliation Ministries. We would put it out for everyone. We would let folks know that the opportunity is there, and then they could come to us with properties that they've identified. It could be a single family home. They have to be willing, though, that whoever wants to do this project for us, we would assist with acquiring the property and rehabbing it up to the level that HUD would require. We aren't just going to, there are certain levels with that. And then if they do that, then they have to enter into a monitoring agreement for us. So they're guaranteeing that they're going to keep that rental unit, affordable for a period of, it could be a minimum of 15 years, but we'd love to see 20 or more. And so it would be not property that the county would own. It would just be assisting a nonprofit to be able to create those units. It could be quadruplex. It could be single family home. It could be, we're kind of thinking it would be around 6 units that we could get for $600,000.
I'm glad to hear you're not building them.
No, nothing building.
Housing prices are coming down, so it might be a good time to buy. The only other question I had, and not to put you on the spot, but one of the things you say in here, trends in the rental market have also made affordable rental units hard to find in Richland County. Now, when I met with More Justice, they said, oh, you know, we can hardly find anything less than $1,000 a month. And we met at my office. I pointed across the street. I said, I got 4 condos over there for $700 a piece all the time. So there are units out there. I think sometimes we're just not doing as good of a job finding them. I don't know. What do you call affordable? Is it under 1,000 or
Yeah.
500 or?
That's a great question. So for HUD has a definition, right? So the
Okay.
federal government is going to say a unit is not affordable if it consumes more than 30% of a household income. But when we talk about investing CDBG or home funds, if you turn to page 69 in your packet, you'll actually see kind of a breakdown here of the rental limits. So if one of these nonprofits came to us and said, we want to do the single family home, they would be required to meet to stay within those rental units. So you see, you know, a 3-bedroom home, we're looking at a maximum would be $1,091 that they could ask for that.
I know there's things out there for that. I mean, they're on our website, so.
They may be. I know that in areas where I look, I cannot find any 3-bedroom house for, I mean,
All right.
yeah.
Well,
So I think
let's
it's a
talk
good
later.
point. Yeah. We're always open to,
Okay.
yeah, but that's kind of what we're looking at. And
Okay.
the truth about the trends, so we do down payment assistance, but there aren't people really looking for down payment assistance right now. The market's not there for it yet. So we thought, well, we'll just focus on rentals until the market changes, and then we have the down payment assistance ready for folks who are ready to do home ownership. So it's still there. It's just there's no activity.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Livingston? I mean, McBride?
So, I'm looking at on page 69, for the 3-bedroom. That's the going cost. You would subsidize the additional money, or is that?
No, these are the limits that
They can
HUD,
charge.
yeah, this would be the maximum that they could charge.
Because we are giving them
Because
grant
this
resources.
is going to be a CDBG invested property, and then they're also required, they will, in the deed, the restrictive covenant on the deed, they couldn't sell that property, for anything above a certain level either. It would have to
Who
stay.
determines who they will rent to?
That's a very good question. So every single one of these organizations, and this is for any jurisdiction they try to get HUD money from, they have to have it's called a marketing plan. And so they would have the organization themselves would have their own system for being able to identify who those houses are going to.
So you would be able to give us a report
Mm-hmm.
with the demographics on who's receiving.
Oh, yes.
That's
We're required to
I know
collect
by
it.
fit- by-
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's great because that's an issue. Data is so important because it helps us with evaluation, and I think sometimes we're not aware when we think of data, we're looking in terms of making decisions, but it helps us with evaluation. And I just wanted to say this one thing about the entitlement funds that I'm so thankful for to the United States government, because when they started funding, they used to have discretionary funds, right? And they realized that they gave funds to discretionary, and they realized that these funds weren't getting to the communities, to the counties. And they started with the formula funds and entitlement funds to ensure that each county received funds, not only the state, but each county and other municipalities. And I think Richland County is at the level is that we have to look to make sure that they've given us the opportunity to get funds without discretionary powers, without they give it to you based on formula, that we begin to look at ways that we can reach our districts and our communities.
I agree, and just for you to know, because of population changes, so our money that we get every year is based off of the number of low to moderate income people in our population, and because of population shifts locally in the region, LMI families are moving outside of the city into the unincorporated areas, so that means that the city is seeing a decrease in their CDBG award, and we're seeing an increase in our CDBG award. So that's just something that we're kind of tracking and knowing that we're going to continue to see these awards probably tick up every year, which means we have more people to serve. And so, and I just, I do want to say, I want to brag on my colleague, Sean, because I really wanted him to speak, and then now here I am standing and using up all the airtime. But just to say, we've got a really talented team. at some point, I'd love the opportunity just to brief the council on all the things that are going on, because this is just the CDBG side of the house.
Right.
We have the housing side of the house too. And Sean started with the county in July, came here originally from New York by way of Hawaii. And now look, he's landed in paradise. And he has just hit the ground running, and we've gotten he's brought so much structure and professionalism to this process, and have just gotten such great feedback from all of our community partners and about his service. And so I'm really proud that we have him on our team, and want you guys to know that's your CDBG guy.
My last statement.
Yes, ma'am, because
Okay.
we have other
Okay,
people.
my last statement, because I know that this is not my committee alone. You have me very excited.
Oh, good.
Because you're talking my language, and I see what you're doing, and I'm just so excited about it. And to make sure that we continue with which you're pushing for equity for all citizens in
Yes,
Richland
ma'am.
County, and I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. Thank you.
And
Thank you, Madam Chair.
report, we'll have an annual report that we'll make sure that you all get in December as well.
Thank you so much. Councilwoman Gretchen Barron, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Mackey. And before I ask my question, I do want to just say thank you to the staff. This has been a very enlightening and detailed report. I have a better understanding of how this program works, so I really appreciate this report. My question is, you mentioned the several organizations by name that could possibly apply for the rental assistance program, and that's probably not what you call it, but that's the terms I'm using. Is it just open to those organizations that you listed, or if there are other organizations, once we publicize this grant opportunity, they in return will have an opportunity to apply as well?
That's a great question.
And I'm sorry, before you answer, I just want to make sure, because we were discussing two separate pieces, so I just want to make sure Ms. Barron knew that.
Okay,
and that
yes.
you were addressing
That's
the
a
right
great,
one.
yes. So, the first agenda item was about the folks that had applied for those funds. The second one, where we're talking about a substantial amendment to past plans so that we can reallocate $600,000 for the purposes of acquiring and rehabbing rental units to bring them back online. Yes, that would be any organization that is equipped to do what I would call monitoring, right? Occupancy and monitoring. So those are some pretty technical areas when it comes to HUD, that they have to have a system for identifying people who qualify. They have to have a process for doing all of those income checks and making sure that the household qualifies. And then there's the monitoring process that we require as the organization. So they have to be willing to do, regular check-ins on the property, reporting to us on an annual basis about who's occupying the property. And so as long as the organization was equipped to do that, and they would have to put that kind of in their application process, then they would be certainly eligible to apply and say, hey, we have this home. And I'll say this is sort of a try. It's not a trial because I know it will be successful, but what I'd like to see is that if we're given this opportunity to try it with just this $600,000 and let us build the toolkit for this model, then it could be that we could build this into the future annual action plans and have a strategy every year where we're developing more rental housing. And so you see that from the city. There's, just in the paper the other day, a call to churches, help us build affordable rental housing. And so, who's to say that in the next annual action plan, we do a real allocation for this concept, and we may have a variety of partners who can help, with purchasing a house and bringing it online as a rental. So I hope that answers your question, Councilwoman Barron. It would be open to everyone. I just named those organizations because they are the ones that are currently actively part of the rental monitoring kind of HUD market.
And it does, if I may, one last question, Chair Mackey.
Go ahead.
It does answer my question. And so the determination of whether or not this organization has the capacity to do the monitoring would be left up to the organization to spell it out in their application. And then from there, during the reviewing process, that's where the determination, I guess, will come in to play whether or not this organization does indeed have the capacity that they state in their application.
Exactly. And because this is really us creating a program, right? This is a rental acquisition and rehab program. We have to build policies and procedures. HUD requires that. So we will have a set policies and procedures. We would do, an educational workshop for organizations that were interested in learning more about it. We'd have an application process where they could spell out exactly how they would meet the criteria. And then we would do a selection process to identify who would, be part of this kind of first wave of acquisition and rehabs.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We had a motion and a second. We were in. Madam Clerk, we should call.
McBride. Livingston. Weaver.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes,
Motion approved.
thank you.
All right. Thank you.
ACA Thomas.
No, ma'am, that concludes our business.
We're at item number 5, adjournment.
Move to adjourn?
The motion for adjourn. There's second? Second.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
McBride.
Yes.
Livingston. Weaver.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.